I'm really blessed to live in a really unique area where I have the beach that's, a couple blocks away, and I have the mountains right behind me. And so pretty much year round, we get this marine layer that comes in and it sits at about 1,000 feet. Sometimes it goes up to about 2,000. And so anytime it comes in, if I run in the morning, I'm pretty much guaranteed to get above it. We have a trail here, the Franklin Trail. Even within the first mile and a half, you've got about 1,000 feet of elevation gain. For me, it's just a mile to the trailhead, so I live right next to it, so it's pretty perfect. So yeah, it's pretty great because I'm guaranteed some pretty spectacular. Usually I get a little twilight once I get about halfway up. This morning we have a big storm coming in California, and so we had kind of a higher fog layer and then clouds on top of that. So it was unusually dark this morning. And it was funny because I was running on the trails about halfway up, and I was thinking it's really dark this morning, and this fox just darted out at me out of nowhere.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Rhythms and Roots podcast. I'm your host, Donnie Hinshaw, and today's conversation sits right at the intersection of movement, creativity, and attention. And honestly, it's one of the ones that I've been looking forward to for actually quite a few months here now. My guest today is this guy that you see right here on the screen, Trevor Blackman. He's a trail runner. He's a fine art photographer who has spent decades learning how to see things the way that maybe many of us don't see. He lives in Carpinteria, California. He runs, from what I can see on his Strava, about 8 to 10 miles a day, almost always on the same trail to get to the same spots, but to come back with very, very different photographs. And that's kind of the key that I think I wanted to interview him about, was this idea that even though he's heading up the same hills outside of town in Carpinteria, California, which if you've ever been to Carpinteria, it's just south of Santa Barbara, and it is absolutely fascinating. It's a beautiful, beautiful section of the coast. I feel like Carpinteria is a really small, kind of a smaller community, and it's not as high end, I would say, as some of the parts of Santa Barbara and some of those areas. But that's what I love about it. It's still got a raw beach feel from like the 1960s and 70s at times, some places there. But I love Carpinteria. But he runs these same miles, and I'm gonna let him chat a little bit more about this. But somehow his work shows us that the creation of God is never repetitive or the same. That's what I see in your work, Trevor. He carries a camera almost on every run, capturing how light shifts, storms form, fog lifts, and beauty reveals itself in ways that can never, ever be repeated. He photographs in ways that embodies one of my absolute favorite Psalms in Psalm 19, where it says, "The heavens declare the glory of God. Day and night pours out speech." And so if we're willing to listen, if we're willing to watch and see, even when we're running, even when we're out there, I think sometimes as runners, at least for me, one of the hardest things to do is move away from the training plan that I have, if it's on my watch or whatever it is, and actually pause and stop and take a breath and take in whatever you're seeing. So like for me in the Boulder area of Colorado, we can run up, all the Boulder peaks, what they call the Boulder Traverse. And sometimes if we're on a training run, me and my buddies, we just don't pause. And I think this last year we went on that Boulder Traverse and came back down by my house, and we got to the top, and there was fog that morning. And everybody said, we can't just leave. We gotta take some pictures. And so I'm reminded by Trevor's work that this is one of the most important things we can do, is to stop and pause. So I was taught very early on, if you're not willing to carry a camera everywhere you go. When I was a photojournalist, you'll miss whatever matters most. That's one of my lines from the guys that trained me. And although all of us don't carry cameras everywhere we go, we do often have these phones. And I'm telling you, sometimes the phones can do some really miraculous things. And I just encourage the listeners and people who are runners, don't get so caught up in the running that you lose a sense of the artwork that's in front of you. So Trevor, welcome to the podcast. This has been, I mean it. I really do mean it when I say that I was looking forward to this one, just because Trevor and I met online, and we're not even sure how. I'm not sure if I followed him first or he followed me first. And I just told him before I hit record, I feel like we were sort of separated at birth, because he's got an artistic mindset. He loves the outdoors. He loves running. He did wedding photography. I did all that stuff too. I'm in ministry. He loves Jesus. He has a strong relationship with the Lord and a sensitivity for ministry. I want to just have you respond to that. Like, what's on your mind as I just kind of shared all that? What's true? What's not true?
Yeah. Yeah. I really enjoy running. It's been a journey for me. I've been running since high school. I was never super athletic. I was on surf team and in band, and started running just to stay fit in high school. And then come around maybe 8 years ago, I started running more long distance and kind of fell in love with that and
Hmm.
just being out in nature. And I was living in Oregon at the time, and this place in Bend in Oregon, we have about 30 miles of just untouched raw beach.
Wow.
There's no houses and very little access unless you run it. So I'd run in the morning. You'd have several little outlet crossings. You'd have to wade to your waist deep, and there'd be seals going in and out and
Wow.
eagles. And it was a pretty magical place. And I just always looked forward to getting out there. And yeah, ever since then, I've just wanted to run. And at that time, I bought a kind of a high-end point and shoot camera and made it a point to always take with me in my running pack. And I got some of my
What
favorite
was
images
that?
from the runs there. It was a Ricoh GR3. They bought out Pentax, and yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, Ricoh. And we used to call those the point, push, and pray, the 3P cameras, you know. But yeah, that's a pretty high-end point, push, and pray camera. But you grew up in Oregon? Is that where you were born?
So I grew up in Orange County. I lived
Okay.
there for about 18 years, and then after I got married, I've lived in Colorado, Hungary, Oregon, Italy, and Missouri. So
Wow.
we've moved around a bit, and I don't know if I said Colorado, so it's been
You
a lot
did.
of time there. Yeah,
Yeah. Durango, right? That area?
we're actually out in Montrose.
Montrose. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's great. Beautiful places. You've
Yes.
lived
Oh,
in a lot of very beautiful places.
yeah.
What part of Italy?
We were about an hour north of Venice in Montebelluna.
Okay. Was that work that took you there, or did you?
I was teaching at a Bible college out there.
Great.
Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, more on that.
yeah,
More on your faith, because I want to
yeah.
get into that too. So that's what makes, I think, the relationship that you and I have is unique, is that we love running, we love photography, we love the Lord, we love ministry. There's so much to this and the importance of faith. And so, as a lot of the listeners that I know of that are even watching this right now, not all of them have a Christian faith, you know, but I think people are listening because they value the sense of faith in what they see when they go out and run. But I don't hold back at all about my Christian faith, because it is important to me, and I don't know how to talk about it differently than what I know. And that is that I truly believe in the work of God. And then, you know, in the beginning in Genesis, when it says in the beginning God created, I think one of the most seminal identities of God for me has always been that God is a creator and he's an artist. He was an artist first before he did anything else. And so that resonates with me, and I'm sure it does with you too. So, but before we dive in even more and get to some of the questions that we've kind of reviewed a little bit, I want to ground us in this scripture of Psalm 19. That is so important with this podcast, that I love this passage. I love the entire chapter. In fact, I have had a mentor friend of mine. He's now passed away. He was in and one thing I loved about him, his name was Chuck Townsend, and he memorized Psalm 19. And he was kind of a hunter and a fisherman, and he'd come to Colorado, and he was an outdoorsman. And he said when he would go out, he would just repeat that almost every time. When he was out in a beautiful space, he would just start repeating this psalm, and he had the full psalm memorized. So it's going to be my life mission before I die to have it completely memorized, because I love it too. But it goes like this. It says, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they reveal knowledge. Creation is always speaking," is how I summarize the entire chapter. And the real question is whether we're actually paying attention to what we see. So Trevor, your site says that you've spent more than 2 decades following light. I love that. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that? What does that mean for you artistically, physically, and spiritually in a way?
Absolutely. So when I started photography, I was working as a 911 dispatcher. And
Wow.
I finally had a little extra money on hand to buy a nice camera. And I bought it and I just fell in love with the process. It was an old Pentax K20D, one of their first digital cameras. And just started shooting every single day. And my wife ended up taking my camera. So I bought her one. And it was really great because we got to go on this journey of photography together. We started with our digital cameras and then we actually switched back over to film because at that time, film was definitely a better quality product. And so went through the whole process of learning that. And it was just a joy to learn together. But after 20 years of taking pictures, it's really interesting of how differently you see the world. You see
Hmm.
light and shadows in a way that you just never have seen before. And so people that just walk down the street, they're not necessarily looking for those things. And once you're a photographer for that long, you can't help but see them
Right.
because you're always on the lookout. And it really helps you appreciate the beauty that surrounds us in a way
Hmm.
that I don't think everyone else gets to see. And I think being a photographer is a really beautiful thing to be able to experience that.
Hmm. Yeah. Even, and I love that concept. And I love how you put in there about chasing the light. Like this morning, I saw that you were out at 5:30. I saw it on Strava.
Yes, yes,
So you're out before the sun is up. You're running in the dark, right?
yes.
And I'm sure even out there, like at least here, that it's not super dark right now. Like it's actually pretty light even when the sun's not up, and it's really nice. I took my dog out for a walk late last night, and we didn't need a headlamp or anything. We just kind of cruised around the neighborhood, and it was great. Um, and at Christmas time, one of the passages that we often read in churches is when it says, "The people who have walked in darkness have seen a great light." So that was the Isaiah's prophecy of Christ coming into the world through the incarnation and his birth in Bethlehem, and so I love that darkness never overcomes the light, right? Light always is able to overpower darkness. And even if you go out and take pictures um, in the middle of the night, like out camping or whatever, just to get the solar system and the stars, what makes those pictures worthwhile is not the darkness. It's the contrast of the darkness and the light. And I love that. And I love your images they so powerfully illustrate the whole black and white light and darkness piece. I love how everything's black and white. I just talked to you about framing and you just
Hmm.
use the same frame pretty much for everything. And I think it's just fascinating because I think that's the light and darkness piece. But tell me a little bit about lighting in general, like when you're out running and you're looking for light, what are you looking for?
Right. So I'm really blessed to live in a really unique area where I have the beach that's, a couple blocks away and I have the mountains right behind me. And so pretty much year round, we get this marine layer that comes in and it sits at about 1,000 feet. Sometimes it goes up to about 2,000. And so anytime it comes in, if I run in the morning, I'm pretty much guaranteed to get above it. We have a trail here, the Franklin Trail. Even within the first mile and a half, you've got about 1,000 feet of elevation gain.
I noticed that this morning looking at that. I was like, it's 8 miles that you're running. It's a good mile and a half or so just to get to the trail, right? Is that
For me, it's just a mile to the trailhead, so I live right
okay?
next to it, so it's pretty
Yeah.
perfect. So yeah, it's pretty great because I'm guaranteed some pretty spectacular views. So sometimes I'll run it in the morning, and I always run it in the morning for sunrise, and so I'll start when it's pitch black. Usually, I get a little twilight once I get about halfway up. This morning, we have a big storm coming in California, and so we had kind of a higher fog layer and then clouds on top of that. So it was unusually dark this morning.
Hmm.
And it was funny because I was running on the trails about halfway up and I was thinking, it's really dark this morning. And this fox just darted out at me out of nowhere.
Really?
Yeah, it was
Were you by
interesting.
yourself today? I mean, are you running mostly by yourself?
Yeah, I always run by myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. My son, we probably hike the trail once a week together. We'll usually do sunsets together, which are also pretty awesome. So always trying to time it with the perfect light. So it's pretty hard to beat a sunrise.
Nice. Yeah, I'm fascinated by that because if I was looking at your Strava and it's pretty much the same route every time. It's pretty much the same route every time. And some people might look at that and go, that's got to be boring, you know. Like I said, if you've ever been to Carpinteria, you realize like you get like climbing in, like you said, 1,000 feet, because it goes from beach to mountains in about 2 seconds. It just
Right.
climbs right out of there.
Yeah. The trail's pretty amazing. I mean, if you go all the way to the top and back, it's about 21 miles round trip, and so you always have the option to go higher. There's some places it splits or it loops. So this last month, I've been in the ocean more, taking pictures, and so my running hasn't been as high as it normally is. So I haven't been as back far in the mountains as I normally like to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. I love your quote on your website. It says the true beauty of a photograph can only be seen in its final medium, the print. Explain that. Why does that, the embodiment of that, why does it matter to you so much?
I've always enjoyed the full process of photography. Like I said, my wife and I shot film for a while. We did weddings for about 10 years together, and I think I did them about 13 years total. And during that time, I actually was able to buy some commercial scanning and developing equipment from a lab that was shutting down. So with that, I opened up kind of my own boutique lab to scan and
Cool.
develop for other people. And the whole process of just developing from putting the film in your camera to developing it to
Hmm.
either seeing the scans, or my wife would do the darkroom printing, is such an experience, and to finally see it on the paper is it's just so much. It's something magical, especially when it's done right. And so now all my printing's done digitally. I have a printer I do that with, and it's so noticeably different than seeing it on a screen. It's something I really enjoy.
Yeah. I totally resonate with that. Like as a photographer myself and starting photography at a time when film was it. In fact, I learned on slide film. So, and the reason why I learned on slide film is one of my mentors in the military had told me, he goes, I'm going to send you out. I got some, s- some different areas that I want you to photograph, but you're only taking slide film. And I said, what are we doing with slide film? He goes, you get a half stop under, half stop over on your exposure, and that's it. So he said, I want to make you a better photographer. I want you to be able to see the light, be able to capture the light properly. He said, because if you don't do that, you'll never you'll never be a great photographer. You have to understand what the light is doing and how to capture it correctly and be accurate with your exposure. You know, I love that. I love that because I was taught in a very raw way how to do photography, and it only benefited me later when digital came into play. So I love that. And there's nothing like it. And I know you know this too. If you're in a dark room and you start to see the latent image come out of that paper as it's in the bath and in the developer bath and it starts coming out, it's amazing. It's a whole nother experience if you've been out photographing in that place and then all of a sudden it always felt like to me, and I don't know if you can resonate with this, but it feels like you're being a part of that creative process as well. It's like you
Absolutely.
you have your hands in it, and it just it's so amazing. So, one of the things I was thinking about earlier is what happens when someone stands in front of one of your prints and they're moved. What does that do for you?
Yeah, I guess it goes back to kind of the purpose. Why do I take pictures?
Yeah.
That really is to capture beauty.
Hmm.
I hope people stand in front of the images and don't think, "Oh, what an amazing photographer,"
Hmm.
but they look in kind of awe and wonder at the image. And I think this is where it's really exciting to be a Christian, because if you're not a Christian, you're going to look at a picture and go, "Wow, that's beautiful. Wow, what a beautiful time of day." Um, you might even say, "This picture moves me a little bit." Maybe you resonate. brings a memory or something. But as a Christian, you can look at something like that in awe and wonder and be like, wow, what a beautiful creator we have
Right.
who creates this for us to enjoy. It's just like a whole nother level of joy you get to experience as a Christian.
Yeah, I agree. Do you feel the pressure when you're out running and you got your camera and you see something like unbelievably beautiful? Do you feel the pressure to have to like grab your camera and take a picture? Or do you ever just say, you know what? This one's just for me. This one's just between me and God. Like, do you ever have that moment?
I don't. I just take my camera out. I take a picture. Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. I'm
Yeah.
glad you're
Yeah.
I'm glad you're honest because I always struggled with that too because I had a lot of people in the past would tell me sometimes the moment is not meant for a photograph, it's meant for you.
Right.
And it was like
Yeah.
as a photographer, I want to remember it.
Right.
And then
Well,
I
I
want to
mean,
do something with it later too in the darkroom or in post processing,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can sit down and have a meal by yourself that's absolutely phenomenal and say, oh, wow, this is a wonderful meal.
Good.
And you can even, take it a step farther and say, this is such a wonderful meal. I'm so thankful that God's provided for this for me. Or like, look at the vegetables and things that he's created for us.
Mm,
But it's a whole nother thing too, if there's another person in the room enjoying that meal in that moment and that Thanksgiving with you.
yeah.
And I think taking photography and being able to share it with other people kind of provides that experience.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Tell me why do you run and not just hike and go take pictures? Why do you not grab a mountain bike and just ride up the trail and take pictures whenever you want? What's the connection? Is there a connection between running and photography for you?
Yeah, part of it is I have a torn ACL. And
Yeah.
so I've found if I run less than 15 miles a week, my knees starts to kind of pop in and out around the house more. And so if I stay on the trails, it helps with the stabilization with my knee. So I'm just in a season of life where I'm just running with that and it's working. And I've found a good spot for that. And I enjoy running. I do have times, where I hike up the hills because we have a lot of hills here. Um, Always enjoy the run down. But yeah, the connection with running, just getting outside. Granted, I could do that on a bike, I could do it walking. But I think the different paces you experience your environment allow you to um, see it in new ways. So sometimes when I'm running, I see things. Sometimes I'll walk the same spot and I'll notice other details I haven't seen before. But for me, the method of running works the best. You get that runner's high, and it's a good workout. Keeps me a happier father.
I
So
agree.
it's good to have
Yeah.
that rhythm of exercise.
Yeah, I agree. Do you when you're out running, taking pictures, do you have a practice or a rhythm in that run that maybe you do stop and do you stop and pray? Do you stop and read the scriptures somewhere? Or is that kind of just a separate or a post-run experience? I don't know. Tell me about that. Like, do you have moments where you're praying when you're running, or
Yeah,
what does that look like?
absolutely. That's one of the things I enjoy so much about running is being out there in nature, experiencing God's creation and beauty and having that alone time with him to pray and seek him. And if I have something heavy on my heart, bringing that before him, I make it a habit to pray for each of my family members. I've got 5 kids and a wife. So I just kind of go down the line, pray for them as I'm running. But I definitely have different rhythms for different seasons of life. I used to listen to a lot of podcasts. Now I'll listen to an audiobook on the way up. And as soon as I get to the top, I'll switch over to some worship music and just start praying on the way down and praising the Lord. And sometimes I go through seasons where I just don't listen to anything.
I agree. Yeah. I always wonder if, people that do have a strong faith, like if that's what they do, if they're just listening to worship music the whole time or if, and I agree with you. Like I'm the same way. There's times when I'm listening to music. Sometimes I'll listen to podcasts. Prominently for me, I don't listen to anything and I just run and I have the thoughts running through my head and I'll pray and whatever's on my heart, especially if I'm in if I'm in a tougher period of life, I don't listen to anything. I use that space as a place to just connect with God.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
everything that I see, I try to relate it to what I'm feeling and what I'm going through in my emotional state in the time, you know?
yeah. It's interesting, when you look at this historically. If you look at John Bunyan, who wrote Pilgrim's Progress, or Jonathan Edwards, or Whitfield, like they all
Yeah.
spent time walking in nature. Like they do 2 or 3 hour walks in the day, just spending time with the Lord and praying. And you even look at Jesus would make time, set it aside to just go spend time with the Father out away from the city, out in the mountains with the Lord. There's something to that.
Yeah. Moses, same thing. Yeah. Elijah, the dark night of the soul, like he would have to just go and get alone with God, and yeah, I love that. I'm the same way. So when I read the scriptures and the different personalities that are in the scriptures, I think the same thing. I think Jesus taught us that rhythm of getting away from everything. Whenever he was around a big crowd, it was like the next day he's like, all right, I'm off in a corner. Let's get away from this madness and go find some solitude, And so it's so important. When did you start? Let's talk about ministry a little bit in your faith. What were you raised in a Christian home
I grew up in a Christian home. I went to a Christian school, elementary through college.
in Orange
And
County?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
What school did you go to?
I went to Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had really great teachers there all the way through high school. There was always older men that poured into me. They take me out to lunch. They take me surfing. Just really great role models of what godly men should look like. And so that heavily influenced me for sure.
Yeah. And you're at Calvary Chapel now, right? Is
No,
that
right now I'm at a non-denominational church out in Carpinteria.
okay? All right. Do you see your art and running as preparation, expression, or something else completely, entirely? Do you see it um, as a part of your faith, and how has art like shaped your faith in many ways?
I think the only way I can really see art shaping my faith, at least photography, is how it allows me to perceive the world differently
Right.
and appreciate things more. I don't look as at my photography as specifically a ministry. Maybe God will use it to open up doors for those gospel conversations in
Hmm.
places that normally wouldn't have that. But besides that, not so much.
Yeah. 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 I always wondered how God would use that too for me.
Hmm.
Because it always felt like photography and art was something that was my own desires or whatever. But you're opening an art gallery, and that's coming. Like, you already got the space and you're working on it. The other day I saw you were working on it. Why a gallery? What was because you guys did wedding photography, you did all that stuff before too. Is your wife still doing wedding photography?
No, no,
No.
she's not. Yeah,
Okay. And you're not either. So this
no,
is this is really becoming more of a main source of income, right?
that's the plan.
That's the
So it
plan.
hasn't yet, but that's definitely the plan. So
Okay.
yeah, I've always enjoyed landscapes, and that's what I started off doing. And then somehow wedding photography found me. And I shot a friend's wedding with my wife, and we loved it. The pictures came out way better than we were expecting, and that just led to a very long season of wedding photography. So it's kind of fun to put that aside and go back to pursuing landscapes.
Hmm.
And so I live in a very unique place, and there's not a lot of photographers out here. That there's a lot of photographers that maybe catch the seascapes
Yeah.
in the area, but the mountains here are so beautiful, and so I feel privileged to be able to capture those and hopefully offer some prints to people that really display the local beauty we have here in Carpinteria.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. What are you doing daily right now for
So I've been a project manager for a software company remotely
okay.
for about 7 years,
Yeah.
and my hours have kind of dwindled on that. And living in Carpinteria is really expensive, so we moved here to help take care of my parents.
Okay.
So right now I'm just looking for a way to that next step to pay the bills. And so I see an opportunity with selling my artwork here, and so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you plan on doing other trails, or are you just going to kind of stay in the Carpinteria area and just use that as your niche of the photography from Carpinteria in that
Uh,
area?
it will be Santa Barbara, Montecito.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Santa Barbara has some phenomenal trails, so does Montecito.
Sure does.
Right now, I've really been dialing in Carpinteria, partly because the trailhead's only a mile from my house, and so any of the other trails out in Santa Barbara take me about 20 minutes to get to, which really isn't that bad. Um, and so my son just did one of them yesterday. Oh, I do need to get out there. I will be getting out there to get pictures.
That's good. That's good. Tell me about your spiritual rhythms, because like three different pillars that I talk about on here often is our physical rhythms, our spiritual rhythms, and our emotional rhythms and things that we're doing to keep us emotionally tied in and really know who we are, our identity, as I would say, and is in Christian terms. My identity is not in things. It's not in running. It's not in photography. It's not even in ministry itself, like being a pastor or a counselor or any of that stuff. That's not my identity. Those are ways by which I'm making a living. It's my career. It's my niche for ministry. It's things I enjoy, but it's not who I am. My identity is in Christ. And so, for you, what is your how do you stay rooted in your spiritual life? What is your rhythms for or disciplines, spiritual disciplines in your life that keep you grounded in your faith?
I think for me, it's always been daily time in God's word
Yeah.
and making sure I spend time listening in to his word, daily time in prayer, which I get out on the trail, which is amazing. And then also making time to be part of my local church, hearing the scripture preached weekly. We try to help out with the home groups. Right now, we're not super active. We always have been leading and in some degree volunteering at our local church.
Yeah.
We're probably just about to be in a season where we jump back into that, but we've kind of taken a step back after we got back from Italy.
Yeah. What were you were in Italy for?
We were
Um,
only there a year and a half.
okay. And that was the teaching at the Bible school or at Bible
Yeah, yeah,
college. Yeah.
yeah. They ended up shutting the school down while we were over there.
Is it at Calvary Chapel?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Really? Oh,
yeah.
wow. That's
So
great. Yeah.
yeah, my wife and I met at the Calvary Chapel Bible College in Marietta, and
Okay.
then also did a semester together in Peru.
Wow.
Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah. Do you see a parallel between printing an image and the way God chooses to reveal himself, not just in ideas, but in form? Like I'll put it this way, like sometimes in photography, people want just a raw image, but I find that some of the best artwork in photography is done in post-processing. I feel like we get a chance to be able to paint a picture that we wouldn't normally see. And I see that in your work a lot. And I guess what I was kind of thinking was in the process of our own faith, God shapes us in ways that we could never ever see. When we put ourselves in the hands of the artist and as God's creation, he kind of like the post processing with us. Like we don't know exactly how we're going to turn out, but when we surrender ourselves to him, I don't know if you see things that way when you're looking at photography, if you see it from a spiritual sense, like when you're photographing things and then in the post processing part of it, is there a spiritual component of that? I guess is really what I'm asking in post processing. Is there a piece that you see God speaking to you in these moments? I don't know.
yeah, yeah. Not necessarily, and I don't know if that's because I spent the majority at the beginning of my photography career doing weddings,
Hmm.
and when I went to edit those image, it was more of a how can I correctly portray this moment, the emotion by the way I edit it.
Hmm.
And so that was kind of my main focus was what are these people experiencing? How are the bride and groom going to interpret this? And that was my main thought behind it. And so now when I go to edit my photos, it's more just focusing on the light and the darkness in the pictures, and how to make those balance.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing like it. Like when you know you have it, like you're in post processing. There is a process to that when you first get the image. I don't know if you ever get this where you get the image on the screen and you don't want anybody to see it yet because there's things you need to do to it. There's some balances you need to make, and you don't want too many hot spots or the light to be too blown out or whatever it is. I feel like the processing is really a huge portion of the art itself. It's not just taking the picture, you know. Yeah. And I think, I don't know, for me, I feel like salvation's kind of like that way. I think we think that salvation's one of those things like, okay, I'm saved, I'm good. It's like, no, sanctification is kind of like that post processing. It's that part where God continues to refine us. He continues to shape us and mold us and create us into the people that we're supposed to become. And that's where I don't know if you see it that way, if there's these moments like that for you when you're out taking pictures, if it parallels in any way like that for you. But I see it that way, and I see it in your work. Every
Oh,
time
that's
I see an
awesome.
image, I'm like sitting there going, man, how much time did he spend on this one image to get it to where it is now? Maybe explain that. Like, how much time do you spend in post processing once you get back?
I don't spend a whole lot, and I think that comes from shooting film.
Yeah.
Yeah, your editing is really done in the scanning process where you're
Yeah.
feeding it through the film scanner and color correction, or your black and whites, the contrast. And shooting weddings on film, you learn to not take a lot of pictures. And so we would normally deliver, my wife and I would shoot together, we'd maybe deliver 600 pictures to a bride. And then as time went by, that kind of dropped even less,
Hmm.
which is very different now to what a lot of photographers do. And our time editing, because you have so many pictures, even to go through, actually, sorry, we would only deliver, I think, like 150 or 200 or something. We would take about 600. So your editing becomes very quick. I was never one of those ones to make sure everything was just right in the picture. I was more concerned about finding that moment and
Yeah.
portraying that. And so I've taken that over to my landscape a bit. I really don't like super processed images.
Right.
Sometimes I do get carried away, and so it does happen. But I generally, I mean, I could spend maybe 5 minutes
Yeah.
max
Yeah.
on an image. Sometimes it's a lot quicker than that. If it's a image I'm going to post on Instagram, it's going to be 5 minutes or less. If it's an image I'm going to print, it's going to be some more time because it's really important for me to get that dynamic range on the paper just right. So I have to make sure I can make the whites as bright as possible and the blacks are at the right darkness. So
Yeah. So in your exposure, you are you uh are you metering for midtones or highlights, or what do you usually metering for in landscape? And I'm talking like for those that aren't really photographers,
yeah.
we talk about like my boss would say when I was learning, he was like, you're gonna shoot slide film because you got to be accurate on your exposure. And people don't realize that like digital still takes an accuracy of exposure to get
Hmm.
what you want in the end of that image. Yeah. So are you doing like matrix metering, spot metering? What do you know?
No, I'm not doing any metering. It's like, when you shoot film, if you're shooting like a Fuji 4K or something, maybe if you like that pastel look, you're going to overexpose it a little bit.
Right.
And so if you're shooting black and white and you want that really clean, like Icarus 100, you're just going to shoot it spot on, right at 100. Digital's kind of the same way. I feel like each camera sensor handles the light a little different. We did more of those pastel colors with weddings. We were shooting Canon at the time, so
Mhm.
it worked to actually overexpose the digital file to get those colors. In landscape, I usually underexpose a bit because I want to make sure nothing is blowing out.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah. That'll
if
ruin a whole image.
yeah, absolutely, you can't get back
Nope.
something that's not there.
Yep. Yep. I'm
Yeah.
I feel the same way. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes with photography like that, what our eye sees is so miraculous. Like it's so miraculous. Like when I'm looking out at like a landscape of the ocean in California or even here in Colorado, my eye doesn't overexpose. It sees everything
Yeah,
at
it's
the
pretty
proper
amazing.
exposure. So when you're when you're taking pictures, we have to sometimes know what's most important in the image that we want to portray.
Right, absolutely. You have to pick something. For me, a lot of it is clouds.
Yep.
So I want people's eyes drawn to specific clouds. So just exposing those just right
Yep.
is really important for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I your stuff's amazing. One of the things I was going to ask you is when did you know that you wanted to take pictures? When was that moment? In fact, I think you sent me some pictures.
In elementary school, I had a neighbor. He was maybe 2 years older than me, and he shot film. He had a dark room in his bathroom, and I think he was doing it as a class. And then he ended up doing surf photography, and then ended up doing commercial stuff. Uh, it just inspired me. I loved it. It seemed magical, and from
Yeah.
that point on, I always wanted to shoot. I think he gave me a camera to shoot and helped me develop a roll of film, and I never really had an opportunity much after that. I took a, point and shoot to the Philippines on a mission trip I went on in junior high and took some pictures, and some of those really were meaningful to me. And I knew I really enjoyed that, but I never thought it as something I would pursue professionally.
Yeah.
That didn't happen until I was already married and had kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Um when did you know that God was real? There's the other piece. When did you know that like cuz you grew up in a Christian home. I did too. And I know for me there was kind of like there was a season in my life, maybe not just a moment, but a season in my life, an age where it was like, okay, this isn't just mom and dad telling me this. This is actually the real deal. There is a God out there. Did you have that? Do you remember? Was there a time frame in your life where it was like your faith just became your own and it wasn't something you were just following because your parents led you in that? What did that look like for you?
I've never doubted the existence
Yeah.
of God. It's
Yeah.
always just made sense to me. In kindergarten, I remember hearing the gospel message that, we've got the good news, but with the good news, there's always bad news. And so understanding that we're all sinners and, we haven't give God the glory that's due to him for creating us and making this marvelous world we live in.
Yeah.
After hearing that, just repenting and asking Christ for forgiveness and committing to serve a life for him and to belong to him. And that was an interesting season of life because I believed in God and I knew I was saved, but I always thought I was kind of looked down upon in God's eyes. I
Yeah.
always thought I was making mistakes and couldn't please him. And it probably wasn't until junior high I heard a message on grace and how God loves us just because he loves us.
Right. Because
We can't.
he can't not. It's his character, it's who he is. There's no hatred there. There's none of that, right? Yeah.
So we can't do anything to make him love us more. And that really just produced a freedom in my life.
Mm,
I would say that's when, before that I was reading my Bible regularly, but it was at that time where I really wanted to spend as much time as I could with him, as much time as I could serving at church. That's where I was finding the most fulfillment in life.
did you have a mentor or somebody in your life, like a youth pastor that really spoke into you, that shaped you early on?
I was really blessed to go to a Christian school, and we had some
Many.
just many, many
Yeah.
amazing men. From the time we'd spend at recess, I had one guy that just poured out, and I had a junior high school that then pastor that became my high school pastor, and we're still connected. He's a surf photographer and wedding photographer right now.
Yeah.
He does phenomenal work, and he made time to pour into my life. My teachers would take me out surfing, and so I've been really blessed with just so many mentors in different seasons of life growing up.
There's nothing like having the guy that's in your life taking you out surfing that loves Jesus, right? I
Yeah,
I I
absolutely.
had that too. The exact same thing.
Yeah.
In fact, I tell people that often. Like I remember um his name's Steve Lacey. He actually might listen to this at some point. He lives in Tucson now, but I was struggling through a portion of my life in high school where I was kind of doubting my own faith and again, like you, not doubting the existence of God, just doubting whether or not I was loved, whether or not I was good enough, the things that I had already done in my past at that point, whether it was forgivable. We're raised in a society where everything is do this, do this, do this. Even in school, it's like, it's about grades, it's about performance. Even with what you do as a photographer, you know, there's a performance piece of that. Like you're putting pictures on a wall that hopefully is going to catch somebody's eye and maybe make them catch their breath and want to buy it, right? And so there's pieces of that, like everything's about performance, but with God, it has nothing to do with performance. It has nothing. And I remember this guy, Steve, saying, "Hey, I'm going to pick you up at 5:30 in the morning." And he had a cool convertible Firebird, like a 1972 Firebird. And I'm going to pick you up. We're going to go surfing. And we go down to Trestles down in Orange County, down South Orange County. The walk down to Trestles is really kind of, it's a fair distance. You have to park up by the freeway and then walk down. And there's the beach isn't, it's not
Did you walk on the tracks?
Yeah.
Or did you? Yeah.
Yeah. And I was so irritated that time. And I remember him saying, "Donnie," he goes, "this is life." He's like, "If you want to get to the beach where the best surf is, you're going to have to like walk the trail. That sometimes is difficult." And he used that as an opportunity. And I don't even know if he was like saying that to like speak into my life, but somehow it connected in the moment for me. And I was just like, okay, sometimes there are some things in life that we have to walk through in order to get to the best surf spots or the best scenery or the best places where you feel loved and secure. And there was nothing like that. We get out in the water and there's nothing like the peace of being out in the middle of the ocean waiting for the set to come in and then riding it. There's nothing more natural than that. And so I don't know. I hear that from you. And I just think that the people that shape us are a lot like in trail running, the people that we run with in our crew. If you do an ultra, you have to have people supporting you. My wife is amazing at that. But the guys that I run with on Wednesday, that's a community that is constantly speaking into my life as a runner. But we have to have that in spiritual life too. I have people in my spiritual life that are continuing to speak into my life. Do you have that now too? People that still are speaking into your faith and maybe moving into possibly ministry down the road, or speak about that. People that have mentored you or are still mentoring you.
Yeah, not during this season of life. I wish I did, but it's just not happening. So it's definitely been a few years since I've experienced that. So something I've been longing for, and Lord willing, and time will come.
Well, I'm here. We can just reciprocate that. You can
Yeah,
speak into
yeah,
mine, I'll speak into yours. But
yeah,
I think there's so many commonalities here. So I'm excited about where my relationship and friendship with you maybe it goes after this. But I love how God connects dots that we can't ever connect ourselves, whether it's
for
on a
sure.
trail or through faith or, you know, it's pretty amazing how we can run into people we would have never run into,
Yeah, absolutely.
commonality like this. But as we kind of wind down a little bit, is there any advice that you would give to people that are wanting to like get out and go for a run, but kind of focus on, faith and pausing and seeing the scenery that's around them and enjoying that? Is there anything that you would encourage them with in that?
Yeah, that absolutely. If whether it's running or walking or biking, I think just getting outside, getting away from your environment, and doing something physical just allows you to make some space in your life to really separate from the just craziness of life, and refocus and regroup. So it's really important. It doesn't have to be running. It could just be a walk.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the great thing.
Simple bike ride, a walk in the park. Yeah.
I will say though, there's that feeling when you've been running for 2+ hours, and the sun sets just right and you're feeling good, and I mean you can't do anything but praise the Lord for how good he is. I don't know, there I haven't had anything come together like that for me.
I haven't either.
Maybe sometimes a corporate worship that were just really sweet, but that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you. I think corporate worship and listening to music and worshiping the Lord with a community of faith is so important. But there's, as I talked to you on the phone last week, that when I'm running alone, I'm not really running alone. Right? There's three others with me, and it's the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And for some people, that might sound like really spooky and weird if you don't have a Christian faith. But once you know the Trinity and you know that each one of them, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, are all persons, these are all relationships. Every one of them is a relationship, and they have a unique identity and a role in my life that when we're out running, and even if we're alone, there's something bigger going on in that experience. And like you said, when you get done, after you've just exercised and you're breathing hard and you're sweating and you get done and the light's perfect and everything around you just feels good. There's something, the world calls that a runner's high. I think it's even bigger than that. I think it's a spiritual high that is mixed with being and walking in God's creation, that the ground you're running on is His creation. Everything you see is His creation. You're just running through a piece of artwork. It's an amazing thing. I just want to encourage people to see running beyond just physical fitness, beyond just the metrics, just beyond just getting in shape or getting a PR on a run or anything like that. Even in triathlons, I did that for a little bit, and they're extremely competitive, and you can get caught up in some of those things and lose the simplicity of where you're at and what you're doing and what you're a part of in that moment. So I
Yeah,
love I love that about your work, just because I feel like when I see your pictures, I can imagine you being on that trail, the Franklin Trail. I can imagine you being there. And I keep telling myself, I'm like, I'm going out there and I'm going to run that with him.
yeah, for sure, for sure. It's
I'm going
gonna
to be
happen.
on that trail one of these days. I'm going to get on that trail with him, and we're going to take pictures. We're going to pray together, and we're going to enjoy what we're seeing in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that it's been really good for me, to put a camera in my backpack. I do keep one in my front pouch to point and shoot, so I don't have to take it out every time. But if I really want to take a good image, I have to stop and take it out of my bag. And I've been in seasons of life where I'm really prepping and I'm really focusing on a schedule
Yeah.
and running hard. And I might not want to stop because I'm worried about my times.
Right.
And the photography has really got me in a space where I just don't care.
Right.
So if I want to stop and take it, like the running has no control over me, I'll stop and take a picture. It's also interesting to see my times as well. I think I was telling you earlier, I'm not running super hard right now because this is surf season for where I live. So I'm in the water more. But when I am running, even if I'm doing some walking uphill or stopping and taking pictures, if I go on a road run and really put my times to the test, my times actually improve.
Mm.
It's a crazy thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I slow it down in the mountains, but my road time improves.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to stop moving to slow down. I think that's so important for people to understand. Sometimes it's just slowing down emotionally, paying attention to where you're at and what you're doing. But you do have to stop rushing when it comes to life. There's a quite a difference. And I feel like maybe for you, for me, I get out and I run, and it is that intentional space by which I feel like I'm slowing down, even though I'm running, even though I'm kind of speeding down a trail sometimes, and I might be doing hill repeats or something. Today I was just doing some strides. I did like 4 strides just to try to see where I was at. But not when you're out doing that, you're really actually slowing down from the speed of life, even though you might be training a little bit. I want to leave people with an invitation this week that when you go for a walk, when you go for a bike ride, when you maybe even it's a swim. I don't know if you've ever, well, you were in the water for surfing, but it's not really swimming. You're on a board trying to get to a set or whatever it is. But if you've ever done just open water swimming, the sound of the water going over your ears just is almost like mesmerizing. That's a whole nother spiritual experience. But I want people to know, like, it's okay to go out and to slow down and slow down emotionally and spiritually. Leave your headphones behind from time to time. Notice one thing when you're out. Notice the light, notice the color, notice the movement that you're seeing that feels like God might be quietly just saying to you in that moment, I'm here. I think that's so important. And so even for those that don't have faith or are doubting or maybe searching, there's no better place to find God than to find him in his creative space and to be out. And like I said, look at the light, look at the sky. People often forget to look up. I don't know if you know that, but we're right here looking at everything right here. And sometimes we need to pause. One of my friends is a musician. His name's Aaron Espy. And one of his songs called Faith and Doubt, he says, uses this line, this phrase where he said, the sky is bigger when you're on your back. The train seems faster when you're by the tracks, if you dare to stand there. And I would just say, like, for people that are out, dare to stand in a space that makes you question or ask questions or marvel or just see things in a new way. Pause if you can and just realize that what you're seeing in that moment is way beyond us. And it's also within us. And it's like God's way of just saying, I'm right here. You're never alone, So I love that. I love how your imagery speaks of that. So that's kind of my thoughts. Trevor, I want to thank you for reminding us that wonder is something that is never too small. It's always big enough for us to notice and see, even in familiar ground. With your trails, going to the same one almost every day. It's different every day. So for those that are listening, may you learn as you run with awareness, and may you create with a sense of gratitude and worship through wonder. May you see God on the trail at some point in this next week. Pause, slow down, take a breath, and marvel at what you're seeing wherever you're at. And let God speak to you and let you know that he's there. So, Trevor, I want to thank you for joining me today. It's been amazing.
Yeah, my
We're going to
pleasure.
have it again. I'll have you on another time. We'll figure out what that looks like. But man, I'm so excited to get this one processed and put out there for everybody to hear. So thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, thanks for joining me today on the Rhythms and Roots podcast. My prayer is that this conversation helps you stay rooted in Christ and inspired to live out the sacred rhythms that shape both body and soul. If this episode encouraged you, do me a favor, do yourself a favor and a friend a favor. Share it, get it out there, and be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss what's ahead, because I'm super excited about where this might be going. Until next time, keep abiding, keep moving, and keep living a life fully formed in the spirit and the mind and the body, and we'll see you again soon.